Long before shows like Angel or Moonlight, there were earlier attempts to mix vampire fiction with detective crime drama. One of the prototypes was a late 80s television film starring Rick Springfield as a vampire posing as a detective working the night shift, all while struggling with his desire to reclaim his humanity. Nick Knight is one of those curious pieces of late 80s television history that tries to be both gritty and gothic, yet still manages to slip in some wonderfully cheesy detective moments. I've also seen it be marketed under the name Midnight Cop, which is so goofy. But is Nick Knight actually worth watching? Let's find out. Without further ado, on with the review. So the film opens on an archaeological site, which brings The Exorcist to mind. Perhaps that was intentional? We then get an overhead tracking shot of LA, which I suppose is meant to hint at a vampire's point of view. I can't lie, this does make me think of The Lost Boys as well. What can I say? There are a lot of vampire cliches. That was especially true during the 80s. We next see a security guard walking around a museum at night, and a hand with long sharp nails takes the ornament that was excavated in the previous scene. The security guard tries to catch the burglar, but is killed outright. There's a lot of heavy breathing throughout this scene, which I guess is meant to make the unseen assailant seem more evil or something. Our protagonist, Nick Knight, is then seen panicking inside a tanning bed of all places, and he says a rather revealing line.
I got a little claustrophobic. It's like a coffin in there.
He doesn't look very tanned, which one of the salon employees even points out. After a very 80s montage of the same few shots of Nick driving to meet a homeless couple, he then tells them to lie low until the assailant from before is caught. Moments later, he gets a voiceover from dispatch about the museum incident.
The only way you get a good head angle is if you get down real low like this. That's it.
Well, that's completely inappropriate, but basically sums up the press. The guard's body is found almost totally drained of blood, and Nick interviews the museum's curator, Alice Hunter, who brought the artifact that the culprit took to the museum in the first place.
That's right, a jade goblet. It was used in sacrificial ceremonies.
Apparently, this goblet was used to drink the victim's blood. I have a feeling I know where this is going. Nick's boss stresses that the culprit's victims have gone from homeless people to employed people, and insists that Nick partners with this odd guy, Don Skanky, which Nick isn't too enthused about. Sometime later, Nick prepares an unknown beverage in the microwave, which I can only assume is blood-based, judging by the colour and the hints we've been getting. I guess this is meant to make us believe that Nick is the culprit, but that would be too obvious, and it's way too early in the runtime for any kind of conclusive reveal. Alice does some reading, while eating ice cream or something, and I'm sorry, but aren't these textbooks important or something? Anyways, the medical examiner, Dr. Jack Brittington, points out to Nick and Dom that the victims were alive while their blood was drained, although the security guard was conscious while the previous three seemed to have been strangled unconscious. Nick and Don show up to a case of arson and kidnapping, with numerous shooting victims. The hostage manages to get away, but the perpetrator shoots Nick several times, knocking him into a pool. However, Nick flies out in vampire mode, throwing the guy into a neon sign, presumably killing him. The vampire makeup here reminds me of a toned-down version of the Buffy makeup. The homeless couple from earlier are attacked by the vampire, and I guess we're supposed to be all like,
Oh, no.
because we know Nick cares about them. But we saw them for what, 2 minutes earlier? Show us more of their relationship before they're used as cannon fodder. Alice enlarges a photo from her textbook and notices that Nick, or someone who looks like him, is in it. Just as she realizes this, he sneaks up on her. He then lambasts her for seemingly hiding in the past, which quickly turns into flirting, and Nick is tempted to bite her. This whole exchange is really weird. Didn't she just find a strange photo of him? Jack confronts Nick about his recent shenanigans as a vampire, and catches him drinking animal blood, which ends with Nick lamenting that he can't ever have a normal relationship. He tells Jack about Lacroix, his sire, who he suspects is behind the string of murders, believing that performing a ritual with the goblet can turn him back into a human. Someone finally finds the murdered homeless guy, and his wife is missing, and this one guy tells Nick that they've been donating blood every Thursday as a way to make money. Given the circumstances, this sets off alarm bells in Nick's head, and he heads to an alternative nightclub to investigate. These types of movies always lead to this kind of setting. Nick goes to talk to one of his ex-girlfriends, a vampire named Jeanette, to ask where Lacroix is, and although passive-aggressive, she does prove helpful. Just as he's leaving, he finds that Alice has been following him, and she keeps following after him to his car, having figured out that he's a vampire. He gaslights her Edward Cullen style, which seems to actually work for now. Lacroix interrupts this by sending Nick a radio message saying he's been waiting for him, just as Nick suspected. Meanwhile, Alice just can't mind her own business and keeps following him when he goes to confront Lacroix. Lacroix does look rather villainous, evil ponytail and all. Ew! Can this get any more 80s? Lacroix scolds Nick about their relationship breaking down like a disappointed parent, which I suppose is a fair comparison to an extent. Lacroix spots Alice while he and Nick are fighting, which of course makes her a bargaining chip. This is why you need to mind your own business, people. Lacroix begins a fight with Nick, allowing for a distraction and getaway via some trusty sunlight. Nick's car gets confiscated by the police as he hides from the sun in his trunk. We get a weird POV and zoom-in shot of this guy, Fenner, which makes him appear suspicious. Jeanette did say that Lacroix wasn't the culprit, regardless of his and Nick's personal problems. He snoops around in Nick's car while Don is in the hospital, which is totally not fishy at all. After this, Don causes havoc on the road while still driving Nick's car, infuriating the vampire. This coming so abruptly after the creepy hospital scene is some real tonal whiplash, not gonna lie. Don takes the car to a mechanic, where Nick decides to reappear and tell him about Fenner. Long story short, the culprit has been attacking homeless blood donors with O-negative blood, which matches a theory that Don had earlier. Fenner's mother, who was O-negative, died after a blood transfusion that was infected with hepatitis, so Fenner blames himself and the homeless O-negative donors. Meanwhile, Alice just walks into Nick's residence, where she finds the dead homeless guy's wife in the lift. The old lady knows that Fenner is the culprit, and when he goes to the apartment to finish the job, he attacks her. When the lady tries to defend herself with a fire poker, this starts a fire, just as Nick arrives to save the day. However, Lacroix suddenly shows up, kills Fenner, and basically goes, "Mwahaha, fire can kill vampires, but you're too weak to fight me." In an extremely cliché moment, Alice offers him her blood, but Nick refuses. Lacroix bites her anyway, which triggers Nick to stake him, turning him into a melting wax head. The film ends with the fire brigade showing up with the police, and the Jade Goblet is sold to a private collector by the time Nick's car is fixed. So, what did I think of Nick Knight overall? I thought it was alright. The film was originally conceived as a television pilot, which is evident in its structure and rather fast pacing. It has a really goofy title card quite early on, and focuses on establishing characters rather than resolving the plot in a satisfying way, which hints that it wasn't intended as a standalone film. While not terrible, the tone feels a bit uneven. It suits the style of late 20th century television, but I think it could have benefited from leaning into a darker, more atmospheric mood, with greater emphasis on noir and horror elements. One thing I did like about the TV show style is the inclusion of throwaway lines such as Nick's remark about having been a grave robber. It's darkly humorous and potentially true given that Nick is a vampire. I do also like that the string of homeless killings and the museum incident were in fact completely coincidental. The film also touches on the theme of addiction, with the unsubtle image of Nick trying to keep his habit of drinking bottled animal blood a secret, mixed with guilt and self-loathing. This is a common metaphor in vampire stories, especially within the guilt-ridden vampire trope. I found the music choices particularly interesting. Contemporary songs like My Prerogative by Bobby Brown play throughout, although the song Human by Rick Springfield, who plays Nick in the film, feel like a more purposeful reference to the character's struggle with his lost humanity. Although the pilot idea fell through and Nick Knight was recut as a television film, the concept was later reworked into a series called Forever Knight in 1992. I already knew about the show before making this video, but I haven't seen much of it. If you're a fan, let me know what you think in the comments. Overall, Nick Knight makes for an interesting time capsule, and it clearly laid the groundwork for what would later become Forever Knight. While there are some things it could have done better, there's a weird charm to its mix of noir melodrama and late 80s cheese. It's interesting to look back and see how shows like this were testing the waters for darker, character-driven fantasy stories that came just a few years later. Well, that's all for this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching. Happy Halloween!
Too spooky for you. Too spooky for you. Do-wop, do-wop,